You're 7 years old, and the clock on the wall has barely moved. A voice at the front of the room tells you to sit still, face forward, stop asking why. There is a worksheet on your desk, and a feeling in your chest you can't quite name yet. A slow, gray boredom. The sense that the most interesting thing in the world is happening somewhere else, without you. You will spend more than 10,000 hours of your childhood in a room like this. For almost the entire history of your species, not one child ever did. The classroom, the desks in rows, the bell, the grade, the test, is one of the newest things humans have ever built. Widespread compulsory schooling is barely 2 centuries old. Your great-great-grandparents may have been among the first humans on Earth required to sit and be taught. Set that against the roughly 300,000 years our species has existed, and the schoolroom is something we put up yesterday afternoon. And yet here is the strange part. For all those years before, children still learned. They learned more by some measures, and faster and with a hunger we then spend the rest of our lives trying to get back. A hunter-gatherer child, by the age of 12 or 13, could name hundreds of plants and know which would feed you and which would kill you. They could read the ground like a page, which animal passed, how long ago, how fast, how frightened. They could make tools, find water, handle fire, cross miles of wild country, and hold their place in a web of social rules more tangled than any classroom. No one gave them a test. No one gave them a grade. No one, in the way you mean it, taught them at all. So how did they do it? Hold on to that question. The answer is a single thing, one ingredient of childhood, and we have spent the last 200 years quietly engineering it out. Let's go back. Picture a small band on the move. Children everywhere, but not sorted. Not a room of 7-year-olds with one tired adult at the front. Instead, a loose, roaming pack of kids of every age, toddlers beside 10-year-olds beside teenagers, drifting together through the long hours of the day while the adults forage and rest nearby. The psychologist Peter Gray spent years studying how children in these societies actually grow up, drawing on the reports of anthropologists who lived among them. What he found, again and again, was almost the opposite of what we expect. The children were not instructed. They were not corrected, scheduled, or made to practice. They were, to a degree that unsettles most modern parents, simply left free. Free to do what? To play. And here we have to be careful with that word, because we have shrunk it. When you hear play, you think of something small, a break from the real work, a thing children do until life gets serious. But for your ancestors, play was not the break from learning. Play was the engine of it.
Watch a forager child at 4 years old. They are not idle. They are trailing the older kids, copying everything. A 5-year-old will make a tiny working bow because the older ones have bows, and fire little arrows at a leaf, at a beetle, at nothing 1,000 times. Not because anyone told them to, but because it is the most interesting thing they can imagine doing. Children dig for roots in play that is almost indistinguishable from the digging that, in a few years, will feed the group. They build small shelters. They track little animals for fun. They stage arguments and reconciliations and learn in their own bodies the exact social texture of their world. The anthropologist Patricia Draper, who lived among the Juhonsi of the Kalahari, a people you may know as the Kung, described children moving in these mixed-age playgroups, learning constantly, almost invisibly, with very little direct instruction from any adult. The younger ones learned from the older ones. The older ones deepened their own skill by leading. No one was held back to the pace of a curriculum, and no one was shoved past their readiness. Each child reached for the next thing exactly when they were hungry for it. This is the part that should stop you. The strangest thing the adults did was how little they did. In many of these societies, researchers like Shane Alzu-Levy, who studies how children in foraging communities actually pick up their skills, have found that explicit teaching is rare. Adults seldom sit a child down to instruct them. They model. They allow. They let a small child handle a real knife, swing a real digging stick, hover at the edge of a real hunt, and they trust the child's own drive to carry them the rest of the way. The learning is not delivered. It is absorbed through watching, copying, and endless self-directed play. And because the group held every age at once, learning had a shape ours has lost. A 4-year-old was not measured against other 4-year-olds. There were no other 4-year-olds in the pack to be measured against. They were simply the youngest, watching the older ones do things they couldn't yet do, which is the most natural invitation to grow there is. The older child, by showing or explaining, locked in their own knowledge by passing it on. No grades, no ranking, no being singled out as behind. Just a ladder of slightly older kids, each one a living glimpse of who you were about to become. So let's reconstruct an ordinary day for one of these children.
You wake when you wake. There is no bell. You drift out to find the other kids, and the day opens in front of you with almost nothing in it that an adult has planned. You spend hours in the bush with the pack, climbing, chasing, building, imitating. You watch your mother dig, and you dig beside her, badly, then a little less badly. You watch the hunters return, and that night you act the whole thing out with the other children, every gesture, laughing. You are, by any honest measure, in school every waking minute. You just never know it, because it never once feels like school. Now, here is the twist, and it cuts both ways. For most of human history, children learned best when adults taught them least. The drive was already inside the child, the curiosity, the urge to copy, the need to master the world they were born into. The adult's job was not to install that drive. It was simply to not crush it, to stay close, keep the child safe, and then get out of the way. Scientists have a clumsy phrase for the fuel behind all this: intrinsic motivation. It only means the drive that comes from inside. You do the thing because the thing itself pulls you, not because of a reward or a punishment waiting at the end. A forager child learning to track is running on pure intrinsic motivation. There is no gold star at the end of the trail. The trail is the gold star. And somewhere in the last 200 years, we reversed it. We took learning, the most natural, most joyful, most self-propelled thing a young human does, and we walled it inside a room. We sorted children by age, against everything their ancestors did. We swapped their own burning questions for our worksheets, their play for our schedule, their hunger for our tests. We took a thing children do helplessly, the way they breathe, and made it a chore so heavy that most people grow up convinced they simply hate learning. You do not hate learning. No human does. What you may have learned to hate is being made to learn on someone else's clock, in someone else's order, stripped of the play and the freedom and the why. Think about the last time you fell down a rabbit hole about something nobody assigned you, a subject that grabbed you so hard that hours vanished. That feeling, the one school so rarely gave you, is the oldest learning state there is. It is the 4-year-old with the tiny bow. It never left you. It was only buried. This is not a claim that school is worthless, or that we can simply walk back into the forest. We live in a different world, and children today need things their ancestors never did. But it is worth knowing exactly what we traded. We gained letters and numbers and reach. We lost the old assumption, true for 300,000 years, that a child, left free and kept safe, will learn the world on their own, out of sheer delight, and that the adult's highest task is to guard that delight rather than replace it.
So if some part of you went a little gray in those rooms, sitting still, facing front, waiting for a clock to move, understand what it really was. It was not a flaw in you. It was a very young human, shaped across hundreds of thousands of years to learn by playing, by roaming, by chasing its own questions, suddenly being asked to sit down and stop. You're 7 years old, and the clock on the wall has barely moved, but the thing you were truly built to do was already happening, just outside that window, and it is never too late to go back out and find it.